everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how to design your own little car using Tinkercad's code blocks. With that being said, let's begin. The first thing that you're going to have to do is to make a new code blocks design. After you come in, the first thing that we're going to be working on is the body of the car. In order to make up the body, we're first going to add in a box. We can change the color to whatever we'd like. And then we're going to set the width to 60, the length to 8, and the height to 25. We're then going to go into the modify section and drag in a move command. We're going to move this first box to a Y of 4. After this, we'll drag in a second box. This one we're going to set the size to be the width 16, the length 10, and the height 25. We'll then drag in another move command, move the X to 1, the Y to 12, and finally, we'll drag in a third box. Unlike the first two, which we can change the color, this third one is going to be a hole. The size of this hole, the width is going to be 12, the length is going to be 6, and the height is 25. After that, we'll drag in another move command, and this is going to move the X to 1 and the Y to 13. So if we hit step 1, we can see our first box, our second, and then the hole that will be a window. Next up, we're going to be making the back windshield of the car. In order to do this, we're going to drag in one of these blue wedge shapes. Again, we can change the color to whatever we'd like it to be. And then we'll drag in a move command, and we'll move the wedge to an X of 16, a Y of 12, and Z 0. Then we'll have to drag in a rotate command, and this rotate command will rotate around the Y axis by 90 degrees. We'll then drag in a scale XYZ command, and this one is going to be scaling the X by 0.7, the Y by 0.5, and the Z by 1.25. Then we'll drag in a second wedge. This one will set to be a hole by clicking this grayed out circle, and we're going to move it to an X of 13 and a Y of 13. We'll then drag in another rotate command, and again we'll rotate around the Y axis by 90 degrees. Then we'll use another scale command, and we'll set the X scaling to be 0.4, the Y scaling to be 0.3, and the Z scaling to be 1.25. We'll then drag in a fourth wedge. This time I've set the color to be black, and I'm going to move it to an X of 23, a Y of 10. We'll then drag in another rotate command, once again rotating around the Y axis, and the scale command for this, the X will be 0.7, the Y will be 0.2, and the Z will be 1.25. So if we go through, there's our first wedge, the move command, rotate, scale, wedge, move, rotate, scale. Next up, we'll be making the front windshield. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to drag in another wedge. Then we'll add in a move command. This time, we're going to move it to an X of negative 14 and a Y of 12. Then we'll drag in a rotate command, and we'll rotate around the Y axis, and this time it will be by negative 90 degrees. We'll then drag in a scale command, and we'll set the X scale to be 0.7, the Y scale to be 0.5, and the Z scale to be 1.25. Now to make the window for the front windshield, we'll drag in a second wedge, and this time, rather than being a solid shape, it's going to be a hole, and we're going to move it to an X of negative 11, a Y of 13, and a Z of 0. We'll then rotate around the Y axis by negative 90 degrees, followed by a scale command. The X will be 0.4, the Y will be 0.3, and the Z will be 1.25. The last thing that we'll need is another wedge. This time I changed the color to be black. And we're going to add in a move command. The X will move to negative 20, the Y will move to 10. Then we'll drag in another rotate command, and we'll rotate around the Y axis by negative 90 degrees. Finally, we'll add in another scale command. The X scaling will be 1, the Y scaling will be 0.2, and the Z scaling will be 1.25. Next up, we'll make a spoiler for the car. In order to do this, we'll drag in another wedge, and then we'll move it to an X of 23, a Y of 7, and a Z of 0. We'll then rotate around the Y axis by 90 degrees, and then we'll put in a scale command. The X scaling will be 0.5, the Y scaling will be 0.5, and the Z scaling will be 1.25. and then we'll rotate around the z-axis this time by negative 105. And there's our spoiler. After this, we'll be making the bumpers of the car. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to drag in one of these polygons. After we drag it in, it'll look like this. We'll click on this little arrow right here, and we're going to set the sides to be 6 and the edge to be 2. That'll add in a polygon, just like this one. The edge adds this little curved shape. After we've added in our first polygon, we'll drag in a scale command, and the X scale will be 1, the Y scale will be 0.25, and the Z scale will be 1 as well. Then we'll move this to an X of 23 and a Y of 2. We'll then drag in a second polygon. Again, the sides will be 6, the edge will be 2. The scaling will be 1 for the X, 0.25 for the Y, and the Z will be 1. We'll then add in a move command, and we'll move to an X of negative 23 and a Y of 2. Next, we'll make some license plates for the car, and to do that, we'll add in another 2 polygons. We'll set the sides to be 6 and the edge to be 2. The first one will have an X scaling of 0.5, a Y scaling of 0.2, and a Z scaling of 0.5. We'll then move this polygon to an X of 26, a Y of 5.5. The next polygon we'll add in, changing the sides to 6 and the edge to 2. We'll set the X scaling to be 0.5, the Y scaling to be 0.2, and the Z scaling to be 0.5. We'll then move this polygon to an X of negative 26 and a Y of 5.5. With that done, we can begin working on the lights of the car. In order to make the lights, we'll drag in a half sphere from our Shapes tab, and we're going to drag in a scale command, and we're going to set the scaling to be 0.2. We'll then rotate around the y-axis by negative 90 degrees, followed by a move command of x to negative 30, y to 6, and z to 7. We'll then drag in a copy command, followed by a move command, and we'll move to an x of 0, y of 0, and z of negative 14. After this, we'll drag in another half sphere. This time for the back, I'll change the color of the lights to be red. And we're going to drag in a scale command of 0.2 again. This time we're going to rotate around the y-axis by 90 degrees. And then we're going to move it to an x of 30, a y of 6, and a z of 7. We'll then copy this red light, and we'll move it to a z of negative 14. With the lights done, we can move on to the wheels. In order to make the wheels, we'll drag in a cone shape from over here, and when we drag it in, we'll click on this little arrow, and we're going to set the bottom radius to be 6, the top radius will be 0, the height is going to be 25, and the sides are going to be 8. That'll add in a cone, just like this. We'll then add a move command, and we'll set the x to be 20. We'll then add in a second cone, changing all of the sides and numbers to be the same, and this one we're going to move to an x of negative 20 to be on the other side. We'll then add in a third cone, we'll change all the numbers to be the same, followed by a move command to x of 20 again. We'll then rotate around the x-axis by 180 degrees to flip the wheel around the opposite way. For the last wheel, we'll add in another cone, again changing the numbers to be the same as before, and we'll move this to an x of negative 20, a y of 0, and a z of 0. We'll then rotate it around the x-axis by 180 degrees to flip it over again. Next up, we're going to add in the hubcaps and wheel wells. In order to do this, we'll drag in a tube shape, and when we first drag it in, we're going to change it from a solid to a hole by clicking on this gray circle, and we're going to click on this little arrow, and we're going to set the radius of this tube to be 7, the wall thickness to be 1, a height of 2, and sides of 8. That'll add in a shape just like this. We're going to move this tube to an x of -20, a y of 0, and a z of 12.5. Just like that. Then, for the hubcap, we'll add in a second tube, we'll change it to a hole, and this time we'll change the radius to be 4, the wall thickness to be 1, a height of 2, and sides of 8. That'll add in a small tube, just like that. And this time we're going to move it to an x of -20 and a z of 12.5. And there's our hubcap and wheel wells using holes. To make the rest, we'll again add in another tube, and this time instead of moving it to an x of -20, we'll move it to an x of 20. There's our shape. We move it to the same coordinates, but this time an x of 20, and the hubcap as well. For the other side of the car, instead of adding in, we'll move it to an x of -20, just like the first ones, but this time the z is going to be -12.5, so it goes to the bottom. Same thing with the hubcaps. We'll have an x of -20 and a z of -12.5. And for the other side, instead of doing -20, which would move it over here, we'll move it to +20, which will move it to this side. At this point, our car is coming together very nicely, and we can add in a group selection command. This will add all the parts together to our car, and it's looking pretty good. However, I think we can make it a little bit better by making the sides of it a little bit more angular. In order to do that and put our finishing touches on the car, we're going to go back to our Shapes tab, and we're going to drag in a wedge. This wedge we're going to change into a hole by clicking on this gray circle. That'll add in a wedge just like this. We'll then rotate this wedge around the z-axis by 90 degrees, like so. We'll then move this wedge to an x of 38, a y of 0, and a z of -2.5. We'll then copy this wedge, and we're going to move this wedge to a z of 5. We'll then rotate around the x-axis by 180 degrees to flip the copied wedge over. We'll drag in another wedge, change it into a hole, and this time we'll rotate on the z-axis by -90 degrees, like so. We'll then move to an x of -38, a y of 0, and a z of -2.5. We'll then copy this wedge, and we're going to move it to a z of 5. We'll then rotate around the x-axis by 180 degrees. So, these hole-shaped wedges will remove pieces of our car, giving the front and back a little bit more of an angled look. To the sides, we'll do the same. We'll add in another hole-shaped wedge, like so, and we're going to rotate it around the x-axis by 90 degrees. We're then going to add in a scale command. The x is going to be 3, the y will be 1, and the z will be 0.8. Like so. We'll then move this to an x of 0, a y of 19, and a z of -5. To move it over here. We'll then add in another wedge, changed into a hole, followed by rotating around the x-axis by 180 degrees. We'll then use an x scaling of 3, a y scaling of 1, and a z scaling of 0.8. We'll then move this to a y of 19 and a z of 5. The last touches are to add some door handles to our car. So we'll add in 2 more boxes. This time we're going to change them into holes with this gray circle. And then we'll click on this arrow, and we'll set the width to be 6, the length to be 2, and the height to be 2. That'll add in a small hole-shaped box like this, and then we'll move this one to an x of -3, a y of 6, and a z of 12. For the other side, we'll add in another hole-shaped box, and this time we're going to move to an x of -3, a y of 6, and a z of -12 to to add it to this side of the car. The last thing we need to do, in order to have these holes be removed from our car and give it its angular shape, we'll add in a group selection. And there we have it. A little car made in Tinkercad code blocks. I hope you enjoyed this design, and if you come up with any additional changes or details, please let me know. I'd love to see what kinds of things you guys come up with. Either way, that's all for this project, and I hope you have a great day. Happy printing, everyone!